It's no secret Steph Curry is one of the best players in NBA history. And despite numerous championships, MVPs, Steph Curry somehow has a lot of false narratives and false notions about his game and his accomplishments. So in today's video, we'll look at some Steph Curry takes that are absolutely false, debunk some narratives, and once again expose the worst Steph Curry haters.
If the Golden State Warriors do not make the playoffs this year, coming up the championship, will Steph Curry get the blame?
You should.
Yeah. Yes.
If you're the best player on a team that doesn't make the playoffs, you should get some or most of the blame. Absolutely.
He's going to get the blame, but they're not going to crucify him in the way
They're
they
not.
would do
Right,
LeBron,
hold on.
KD.
That's facts. Right,
who
hold
else?
on.
It's
But they put him, he's leading the league in scoring, no impact. They're in the play-in. But this boy beside me would tell you, he'll say, oh, it's the bench. No, I don't want to hear that. We didn't make that excuse for nobody else.
People are so thirsty to see Steph Curry fail, it kind of astonishes me. And when it comes to these discussions, we're having preemptive debates blaming Steph for not making the playoffs. Keep in mind, this is after his fourth championship, his first Finals MVP, and a great playoff run in totality. When it comes to Steph Curry, these people and these fans will never be satisfied. And looking at their overall points, they say Steph, quote-unquote, won't be crucified like KD, Luka, or LeBron if he misses the playoffs. This take right here is Revisionist History 101, because Steph Curry, for a solid 7 years, was crucified by the media not for failing to win championships, but failing to win the Finals MVP despite averaging 27 points. This guy won 3 championships, played great in all those series, and still the media crucified him for not winning Finals MVP. Can we please bump this narrative that Steph Curry is some golden boy of the NBA who's never been criticized and who the NBA media hasn't taken shots at for years? And one thing in that clip that was flat out false is saying Steph Curry this year has no impact and is putting up quote-unquote empty numbers. And if you say Steph this year isn't valuable, his overall stats are empty, you don't know basketball and you aren't paying attention. As Steph this year, when it comes to on-off plus-minus, is a plus 19.3, which is second only behind Jokic, who's above 20. Looking at someone like Tatum, he's plus 13.9, Luka Doncic is plus 7.1, LeBron James is plus 1.8, and Giannis is plus 1.7. To say a guy in Steph Curry who's averaging 37-7 on 50, 43, and 92 splits isn't valuable in his empty numbers is a flat-out false statement that is simply bogus. And at the very end of that clip, one of those guys said Steph Curry's bench being terrible is an excuse nobody else gets. I swear, those guys on that panel have the memory of a goldfish. As last year for the Lakers, LeBron James, all season had the media blaming the bench, who was 16th in plus-minus. Compared to the Warriors this year, who are 30th in plus-minus and dead last in that category. When it comes to winning basketball games in a team sport, having a terrible bench could definitely hamper you for an 82-game season. And once again, looking at the Lakers last year, there was a minimum 5 articles per day blaming the bench, blaming Westbrook, and blaming everyone except LeBron James. Even looking at Luka Doncic this year, he's having a great individual year, but the cast around him isn't up to par. If Dallas fails to make the playoffs, which I don't think they will, you're not going to blame Luka for him failing to make it. What you're going to blame is the supporting cast and most importantly, the bench. Because Luka, much like Steph, he's a proven player performer who's highly valuable and does not put up empty stats.
Curry never breaks Ray Allen's record if Ray Allen played in this era. What makes you think if Ray Allen played in this era and Reggie played in this era, where they're shooting damn near 10 threes a game? LeBron James shoots almost 8 to 9 threes a game, bro. So imagine if you shooting Reggie and those other guys shooting damn near 10 threes a game, bro. Them records would be unbeatable, bro.
So stopping him right there, when you mention the best shooters of all time, of course there have been tons of guys who can drain the long ball and have great accuracy from deep. But the one thing for Steph Curry that separates him from every other player is versatility when it comes to shooting, as he can hit pull-ups off the dribble, in the pick and roll, he can catch and shoot, and even go in the corner and knock down those crucial threes. Steph in all those categories is in the top 1% of all players. Am I saying Ray Allen in a shootout couldn't beat him once? Definitely not. But what I am saying, when looking at Steph Curry and his shooting, he can move with the ball as well as without, compared to someone like Ray, who for the most part was going around screens, picks, and other variations to get open. And looking at 2016, one of the first years in NBA history we kept shooting stats, Steph that year on pull-up threes made 2.8 per game, a full one more three than the second place finisher. And more impressive, his percentage was the highest in the NBA on the highest volume. And looking at catch and shoot, he didn't do it as much, but still made 2.2 per game on 48% shooting, only behind Redick, whose sole job that year was catch and shoot threes. And even looking at pick and roll threes, he shot 61.1% on those shots, the highest in the NBA, with another player being above 53%. And looking at his overall shot chart, it's a thing of beauty and pure perfection. When it comes to shooting at the rim, the mid-range, the three, the free throw line, even from 25 plus feet, Steph in all those aspects is in the top 5% of NBA players. And once again, I do want to nail it home. Looking at someone like Larry Bird, Ray Allen, even Reggie Miller, all those guys were great shooters. But when it comes to Steph Curry, his overall range is much deeper, and his movement with the ball and without is 10 times better.
If Steph Curry doesn't get drafted to the Warriors, let's say he goes to his hometown, Charlotte Hornets, who have been shit forever. He doesn't win no rings. He plays the same way he plays. He still leads the league in threes and whatnot. I don't think Steph's in a lot of our top 5 point guards like that. And if he is, he's at 5. Without those rings, without the impact of being on a dynasty, I don't think we look at Steph as exalted as he is right now. Winning impacts who you are as a player.
So stopping him right there, his overall point isn't that bad, and he's actually correct. As looking at championships, they have a big impact on all-time standings. But when it comes to his overall argument, looking at hypotheticals, you can apply it to any player ever. If Michael Jordan went to the Bobcats, who won 7 games, he wouldn't have 6 championships. If Magic Johnson went to the 10-win 76ers, he wouldn't have 5 rings. And if Larry Bird went to the 12-win Nets, he wouldn't have 3 championships. My point being, you can apply the same logic to any player, any era, even any sport, and go down that rabbit hole. Now, with that being said, looking at Steph Curry, when he was drafted, the Golden State Warriors were indeed a joke. As for the 15 years prior to him, they won a total of 1 playoff series and hadn't been to the West Finals since 1976. And one more thing I do want to clarify, when it comes to Steph Curry, when he went to the Warriors, they were absolute garbage. And he wasn't some piece on a dynasty, he was the dynasty and helped build that team. As even with Kevin Durant, an all-time great player, the Warriors without Steph were a shell of themselves. In 2018, going 17-14, and in 2019, going 5-8. Without Steph Curry during the KD era, their record was 24-23, on pace for 42 wins. Compared to with Steph, their on-pace record would have been 65-17.
That is a good point, because if we had Steph Curry in like a Damian Lillard role,
when you have the ability to take your team to the promised land and hoist that trophy that basically says, I was the best player this year. Maybe not the most talented, but my abilities as a player led my team to beat everybody else and be victorious. I'm at the top of the mountain.
When it comes to Steph, I'm noticing a very common theme about the criticism of his career. A lot of what ifs, a lot of hypotheticals, and things that might and could have happened. And one thing I do want to address is saying Steph Curry in the Dame Lillard role wouldn't be as successful. Of course, once again, this is an outlandish hypothetical, but I'll entertain it for you guys. If you want clear-cut proof of the gap between Curry and Dame, look to the 2019 Western Conference Finals, as Steph for this series was missing KD and Boogie Cousins for all 4 games, and even Iguodala for 1 single game. Despite those injuries, Steph in this series averaged 37, 8, and 7 on 47, 43, and 94 splits. They swept Portland 4-0, and in 3 games, 3 separate times, overcame 17-point deficits. Looking at both Dame and Steph's supporting cast, Dame's teammates in this series averaged 83 points, compared to Steph's, who averaged 78. And Dame's second best player, CJ McCollum, averaged more points on better shooting than Klay Thompson. Minus KD and Boogie Cousins, the difference in this series was quite literally Steph Curry being 10 times better than Dame Lillard.
Curry's impact offensively is so crazy that it revolutionized the game of basketball.
Let me go ahead and eat to him right quick, because Giannis' 5 years is better than Curry's 7 years. Hit Curry little 7-year span.
Impact on what though?
Come on, because Giannis doubled him. He got 2 MVPs too. In that little 5 years Giannis got, he got 2 MVPs. He got a Defensive Player of the Year award. He got a Most Improved Player of the Year award. He got an All-Star Game MVP. He also has won a championship and a Finals MVP in a 5-year span.
Yeah, don't leave that part out.
Drops the mic.
So looking at both Steph and Giannis, it's a very entertaining and interesting debate, as both these guys play basketball in completely different ways. But when talking about their overall dominance at this point, I think both of them are the 2 best players in the NBA. And if you want to compare their overall peaks, at this point in time, I would say it's still too early looking at Giannis, who's only 28. Give it 1, 2, 3 years, or at least till Giannis is 30, to really have these debates and these conversations. As right now Steph Curry has a full body of work for a solid decade you can look at as pure greatness, compared to Giannis, who's still really early in his career and was a late bloomer for NBA superstar standards. And looking at Steph's overall resume in the past decade, he's won 2 MVPs, 1 Finals MVP, 4 championships, a 2-time scoring champ, a 6-time threes made leader. He won 73 games, as was 67. Looking at the full body of work and the playoff success, Steph at this point clears Giannis pretty easily. But I do want to clarify once again, Giannis is only 28 and has plenty of time to close that gap. Now, with that final point being made, that is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.